Welcome back to Generative AI 101, where we don't just tiptoe into the deep end, no, we cannonball with no floaties. I'm Emily Laird, your lifeguard in this digital pool party, here to make sure you don't drown in jargon. Today, we're throwing OpenAI's O1 preview under the microscope, breaking down benchmarks, numbers, and why your calculator just might burst into flames. It's like the AI Olympics, except the math is harder and nobody's getting a medal. Just existential crises. So let's see how O1 stacks up against not just its predecessors, but also against the very people it's been designed to outsmart. Welcome to Generative AI 101. All right, let's get into it. So first up, let's get into the brainy stuff, mathematics. If you thought GPT-4o was impressive, think again. In the International Mathematics Olympiad, or the Super Bowl for math nerds, GPT-4o managed to solve a humble 13% of the problems. Not bad, but O1 swooped in and smashed through 83%. To put that into perspective, that puts O1 in the same league as the top 500 human competitors in this high school math competition. These aren't just any teenagers, but the kind that casually solve equations most of us would stare at like hieroglyphics. And if that's not enough, O1 flexes its scientific muscles in the graduate problems and qualifying assessments, the GPQA, for subjects like physics, chemistry, and biology. Here's the kicker. O1 did better than PhD-level human experts. We're talking graduate-level scientific questions, complex stuff that requires not just a love of science, but a brain that's borderline Einstein-esque. Now, what's the deal with coding? We've all heard that AI is set to steal programmers' jobs, but let's see if that's actually true. So in the International Olympiad in Informatics, the IOI, O1 clocked in at the 49th percentile with a score of 213 points. Now, that might not sound too crazy, but under relaxed conditions, meaning it wasn't up against the toughest competitor, O1 managed to cruise past the gold medal threshold. So we're looking at an AI that can handle the pressure and deliver the goods. And then there's Codeforces, the ultimate battleground for competitive programmers. GPT-4o posted an ELO rating of 808, about as impressive as showing up to a marathon in flip-flops. But O1? It leveled up an ELO rating of 1807, outcoding 93% of human competitors. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about with ELO rating, go back. We have an episode called What is the ELO Rating System? That's like going from amateur chess player to grandmaster in one upgrade. So we've made a leap from GPT-4o to O1 preview. Now, before you think O1's all about crunching numbers, let's talk about its ability to reason, like actually think through complex open-ended tasks. And last episode, we talked about thinking, right? So metaphorical thinking. So in a test covering data analysis, coding, math, and more, humans preferred O1 over GPT-4o. When it came to reasoning heavy problems, think of O1 like that one student in the class who doesn't just get the answer, but shows every single step perfectly. But hey, nobody's perfect, not even O1, not even me. When it comes to more natural language tasks, things that require subtlety, nuance, and a bit of creative flair, GPT-4 still has the edge. So while O1 might be the AI equivalent of a mathlete, it's not quite the poet laureate just yet. So how does all this math, coding, and reasoning translate into the real world? Well, let's hit some practical examples. O1 has a knack for solving logical reasoning questions, like counting words and letters and prompts, which, let's face it, would drive most of us nuts after about 10 minutes. It also breezes through complex puzzles that left previous models scratching their digital heads. When it comes to mathematical challenges, O1 crushes algebra and trigonometry problems from advanced textbooks like it's munching on breakfast cereal. But even the mighty O1 has its limits. When faced with unsolved problems, think the Riemann hypothesis, the stuff that keeps mathematicians up at night, it takes a pause. Sometimes you just gotta admit you don't have all the answers. All right, now let's talk about how O1 compares to the OG, GPT-4. In reasoning and math, O1 leaps past GPT-4 like it's been training in a Rocky-style montage. It outshines GPT-4 in competitive programming, showing that the future of coding might just belong to machines. This is a big but, O1 does have some growing pains. Certain coding tasks still trip it up, and when it comes to creative writing, GPT-4, like we said, is still the reigning champ. So if you're looking to draft the next great American novel, stick with GPT-4 for now. But for solving complex problems, O1's your go-to. And that's a really interesting thing we're starting to see happen, right? Models that do different things. Models that have, like humans, different areas they're skilled at and excel with. Now think on this a little bit, and I want you to start thinking through how the development of generative AI models and this new persona of O1 translates into humans. Think about future use, think about what we've heard about agents, and the ultimate exploration of AGI. So although some critics have kind of passed on O1 preview, I think it's starting to showcase a future state where models mimic humans in a diversity space. You may not excel at math, like I don't excel at math, but we all know someone, like I know someone, who does excel at math. So that's just food for thought as I look at what's rolling out from these larger companies and seeing these models and what they can now do and reflecting on that into, I think, what their future state could look like. And we're starting to see how these models have different areas and focuses that mimic our own human proficiencies. So that's all for today's head-spinning number fest. We've seen how O1 can tackle math, coding, reasoning, and even outwit human experts in some fields. But it's not invincible yet. In our final episode, we'll break down the practical use cases for O1, where it's still got room to grow, and what the future holds for this mind-bending AI. As always, if you've got questions, thoughts, or just want to share your worst math test memories, you know where to find me. On LinkedIn, just look up Emily Laird, Laird, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious, stay adventurous, and remember, you now know more about AI benchmarks than most people probably ever will.